Reimagining retirement in my own words. This is an ongoing new series in Compass and Clock. Please submit your story about what retirement means for you for publication in our magazine or in our monthly e-newsletter. Reimagining Retirement in My Own Words by David Pratt, owner of HVA-Speciality Tritrophy LLC. Retirement was easy. After 30 years of vigorous business travel, the scales tipped. The rewards of business analysis for software application were outstripped by enough already. Preparation for retirement was a bit more challenging. In 2008, about 2 years before retiring, I decided to make my last off-road race motorcycle look like new again. My 1987 Husqvarna, and I will spell that because I want to make sure that you know the bike, HUSQVARNA, the 430 XC model, was then the best motorcycle for off-road competition. My bike was well maintained and looked pretty good, but well used. The shop that had supported me was still in business, but no longer a Husky dealer. The up-and-coming KTM model that replaced Husky, of course I knew that because I had recently purchased a new KTM play bike from that same shop. The dealer had been usually successful with Husky and was one of the most well-stocked dealerships in the country. I stopped in and handed Steve my shopping list. Sorry, Dave. All the Husky inventory and my remaining bikes and tools and more is all packed away in a warehouse. I can't get to these individual parts. He paused for a count of 10. Why don't you just buy it all for $, big number? And we both laughed heartily, shook hands, and both expected that was that. First, the idea languished in the back of my mind like a dormant seed. Then I began to catch myself searching for Husky parts on the internet. With years of experience as racer and mechanic, I knew what to look for. I had been riding, racing, building, and loving off-road motorcycles since my 15th year. At 60 miles an hour in the desert, I had my most spectacular crash. It didn't really hurt me or knock me out, but it was dramatic. Realizing the business opportunity that Steve and I shared as a joke hit me just as suddenly and nearly as dramatically. I was going to be a go-to source for a vintage Husqvarna 1966 to 1988. You're not kidding? Was Steve's initial response. From that moment on, he was great. Of course, I had to see what was being offered. It far exceeded my expectations. About 12,000 pounds of parts, mostly NOS, new old stock. About 10 motorcycles, tools, clothing, manuals, vintage memorabilia, etc., etc., etc. I paid 100% upfront and moved everything, looking like the circus was leaving town. The large building I had erected on our property was designed to contain a collection of cars. It was quickly filled with the unsorted load after load from Steve. Heavy-duty shelving went up, parts were sorted and put away by their original factory part numbers, and before long, my shop looked like the back room of a large Husqvarna dealership. Swedish Husqvarna hit the racing scene in 1969 with Steve McQueen's favorite 400 MX. The rest was history until darkness fell. In 1986, Husqvarna sold the business to an Italian conglomerate. By 1988, nearly every model was of a new Italian design. The bikes weren't awful, but management was, and by the 1990, nearly all Husqvarna dealers had either moved to new makes or had plans to do so. Inventories, large and small, were moved out or discarded at these dealerships' buildings and were repurposed for KTM, Honda, Yamaha, etc. Many of these inventories languished. Steve included a valuable gift along with all the manuals and brochures, etc. He gave me a list of every Husky dealer in North America as of about 1990. We have been fettering out the inventories that survived, and even today we are still finding the most obscure, most recently in Anchorage, Alaska. We became a business registered in 2010. Our initial sales outlet was eBay, and it proved to be hugely successful. We had continued to uncover treasure after treasure in the old inventories and found a hungry market for vintage race, old guys on old bikes, fix up the Husky I've had for years, and full serious restoration undertakings. We offered parts that had not been available for decades. Business settled in and both clear and changing patterns emerged. We had been the first, but not only, similarly chartered company. Many items we sold week after week stopped selling, and others gained traction as our customer demands moved from rare and restoration toward more vintage racing. With that swing, wear parts came more in demand, and we began to manufacture exhausted stock and even began to design new things. In 2019, we quietly opened our new website, and by the end of 2020, we closed what had been a shrinking presence on eBay. At the same time, we embraced Facebook. The synergy between website and social media is essential, irrefutable, and darn frustrating. My advice: don't be intimidated by a new paradigm. This one can be handled by just about any 9-year-old. I am fond of saying I am wound a little tight. I am energetic and optimistic. When I began my business career at one of the international Big 8 CPA firms, I was accosted by a garden gnome. Actually, it was my elderly first grade teacher who looked about 2 feet shorter than I. Her harsh delivery while she thumped my chest. "I never thought you'd amount to anything. You never would sit still." Well, Mrs. Steth, you are still right, at least on the last point. The golden linings are my 2 grandsons. Jeff began recreational off-road riding with me and quickly graduated through an upward trajectory from small, underpowered junior bikes to now racing at an advanced level on a modern Apex off-road competition ride. Tom, my younger grandson, is helping Grandpa with inventory and website postings in between his educational responsibilities. He is moving up the more power/more suspension motorcycle ladder as well. I adamantly disagree with the contrary notion. Turning a hobby into a business can be a terrific avenue. Take something in your life's experience that makes you smile, grow and nurture it in retirement. It does not have to be a for-profit thing. I hope it is something that wakes you up in the morning, gives a sense of accomplishment, and puts you to bed for a restful night. The company, HVA-Specialty, Husqvarna Vintage Racers and Restorers are our focus. You can contact us at 503-680-3056, and you can find us on the web at www.hvaspecialty.com.